Okay, once again, welcome back, everyone. And we turn now to part 4 of our agenda, which is in-year delivery on all different aspects of what's happening currently. And Pat, shall I turn to you for key issue report, please? Your AAA report from March and April.
I think we've dealt with the financial aspects. Sorry. The March one is now up to date. We've dealt with the financial aspects. The performance ones I could raise under the IPR section, and the other section things that were on there then is direct payments, which I've made a comment on, and the regional integration fund, which we've already discussed at once.
Thank you very much. And we'll pick up clinically optimised patients under the QSE AAA report as well. Thank you. Thank you, Pat. So Steve, shall we turn to you then, because you are chairing a subcommittee of PFC now on all aspects of capital, land and assets, and that a focus on all these will be instrumental in helping us to get to that sustainability balance position in year 3.
So we had the first meeting of the Capital Land and Assets Subcommittee. I'm calling it CLASC. So after years of complaining about acronyms, I've invented a new one. So we had the first meeting last week, so there's no written record of it yet. I think it's fair to say that it was a formation lap for the committee. If you attempt a Grand Prix analogy, it was its first meeting. There had been a task force for capital land and assets previously, but this is the first time it's been a proper assurance subcommittee of PFC, and it had 2 new members. So Andrew on my right and Nicola was also on my right somewhere, I think. And they were new to the field, so it's good to get that fresh insight. We spent a good deal of the time working on the frame of reference and the ways of working, the ways that the committee will work, because the way that the task force used to receive its reports from the estates guys, it was all a little bit uncoordinated, let's put it that way. But Marie and Claire have set up an executive-led group in this field, the capital management group. We agreed after some discussion that this would be the sort of executive feed-in to this subcommittee, and so we will time our meetings to follow a meeting of the capital management group. So we have that executive-led input in the same way that the quality and safety group feeds into the quality and safety committee. The capital management group will feed into our. The estate strategy has existed for some time. What we want to see is a firmer link between it and the clinical services plan. And what the estates guy says, what they say to me is that we can't really decide what to do with this with a particular asset until we know what the clinicians are going to be doing, and whether they're going to be there or from there, and what services we want to put in a particular place. So and that's a good way of doing it. Marie leads clinical services and the capital management group. But we discussed what there are. It really should be major assets only, but that would include major digital assets. We then looked at, and this was for assurance, there's an approved capital financial program, and we went through all the areas of the program, and there's some of it's financed by discretionary capital, some by specific amounts of capital that have already been allocated, and we went through all of those projects. That adds up to about £49 million worth of projects. And if there was an alert coming out of this meeting, it would be that we only have allocated against that 40 2 or 3, I think. We only have 32 million of funding so far identified from our discretionary capital and other allocated amounts from Welsh Government. So there's 11 million pounds to find. The risk is relatively low in the sense that it could push some projects back that have a lower risk register risk. But also what happens is Welsh Government tend to come up with small pots of funding, capital funding during the year. And our guys are quite good at laying their hands on those. And so we're relatively confident that we'll either get funding for some of these projects or be able to mitigate the gap by pushing them out a bit. And then we talked about some specific capital projects. One of the frustrations of this bid is it's a mix of things that we know we want to do quickly and things that we think we'd like to do sometime down the line. In some cases, we're talking to Welsh Government about funding, in some cases, not yet. And some examples are the seclusion suites at Caswell Clinic, which we know we're doing, and there's money being discussed. The mental health stabilisation and long-term plans. So the stabilisation, we know that we're talking to Welsh Government about that planning, but longer term is much further down the line. The work at hybrid, which we know we have to do, but it's still quite a long way out. And the cellular pathology project, which we're doing with Hywel Dda. And if there's another alert, and I don't want to say anything too specific about that because I know my colleague Charlotte's in the room and don't want to conflict her. But we're not happy about the speed with which the business case is being worked up for that particular project. So we went through all of those, and then we talked about some underutilized estate that we have, and examples of that and what to do about them. And the estates guys rightly say that we can't really reach a conclusion about what to do with these things until we know what the clinical plans are for the site. But, for example, Gorsinon, which Andrew was telling me he visited this week, which is currently underutilized after the inpatient was moved, but there's plenty of space there for other activities to be brought in once the clinical services plan has been formulated. And I'm always nervous about pronouncing this word. I think Cwmla is another site, Garngoch, another site, Tonna, with various things could be done with these. But the clinical services plan needs to feed into the estate strategy. And also this building, which is not fully utilised, but could be utilised much better. So for future meetings, we will want to have for each of these areas a much stronger idea of what is going to be done and when it's going to be done and how it's going to be funded, or in some cases, what monies could be received from redevelopment opportunities that might exist. And then the big thing which will fill this committee's horizon for the next several years is the PFI exit strategy. Neath Talbot Hospital, as you're all aware, was financed by a private finance initiative hospital private finance initiative funding 26 or 7 years ago. So it comes to an end in 2030. And there are various requirements in the contract on our part as the body taking over the site, and on the PFI financiers side as the one they have to hand it over to us in a certain condition. So there'll be quite a lot of activity over the next 2 or 3 years on that, which this committee will oversee. And I think that sums up the first meeting. Happy to take input from
Very productive.
other people that were there.
Nicola, any comments from you, and then Andrew?
No, I think that was a very true reflection. I think it went really well. It was great to have some really frank and honest conversations in that committee meeting, but that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's good to get an overview of what capital assets we do have, and really, you know, where we put our capital is an expression of our strategy, isn't it? So it's good.
Only to say that Claire and I are pleased to be finally formally establishing the capital management group, which, as Steve said, will be the executive group that will feed into the subcommittee. So we will use that as the vehicle to provide oversight assurance and to support the planning and prioritisation process for both our discretionary capital and our major capital, so that it aligns with our annual plan and it aligns with our transforming for the future.
Thank you. So thank you all, and we take assurance from the update and look forward to it further. We'll move into our section, and we're beginning with the performance assurance framework.
Okay, Doug, if you would bear with me, I'm going to just pop a few slides up on the screen just to walk colleagues through the approach that we've taken. So you'll see from the paper, and there were quite a number of, so there were some supporting papers in the moving through. Oh, no, wrong one, sorry. The framework. Paris. No, it's the integrated report next. Oh, it is it? Yeah.
Okay, so number one is performance
I'll go
assurance
there.
framework.
Sorry.
Yeah. So if we get the framework first.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Can you stick it up for me and then I'll nod if you want to change the slides. Board colleagues will see from the paper that we have provided an updated performance assurance framework in response to performance and accountability framework, very important distinction. In response to the national framework that's been established, and in response to structural assessment recommendations and internal audit recommendations around how we provide assurance in our annual planning process in terms of how we are able to assure delivery against the plan as we develop and implement the plan. And also there has been a change in the way that we report, obviously, and are held to account by Welsh Government. So we wanted to make sure that our accountability framework has been updated to reflect all of those changes in both policy, proposed governance nationally, and also our own local recommendations. The purpose of the PAF is to help us to drive the improvement that we need and to provide assurance and to make sure that we do that in a way that is fully integrated across all of our functions. So we've embedded the framework very clearly in our health board mission. Move on to the next slide, Caris. And you'll see there at a very high level the scope of the PAF, which is pretty much all encompassing. So it's pulling everything together into one framework so that we have an integrated overview of how all of our the individual components of our organisation feed into a system of performance assurance and accountability. And we've also made sure that from an escalation point of view, we have reframed and clarified how we work through those levels of escalation and how our programmes and systems will interrelate to ensure that we've got that truly integrated overview of performance and delivery. Next slide, please, Caris. Again, I won't dwell on these, but again, we've tested these principles in terms of how we've developed the approach, and we've worked closely with service leads and independent member colleagues to make sure that what we've got is a well embedded set of principles that underpin the proposed approach. Moving on, Paris. Okay. So this is really important. So in order to hold the organisation to account, we've made sure that from a performance point of view, expectations are really, really clear. So we're making sure that the deliverables are clearly described in the path, and how they will be monitored is clearly visible. The accountability goes all the way through from service group level up through to exec level, and then reporting up into the board. We want to ensure that our evidence and information to support our performance assurance and accountability arrangements is really, really clear and transparent. There's been a lot of work done on that to ensure that we've got that transparency and we've got that focus, improvement focus, and again, making sure that we are really clear what we're trying to deliver. So we previously had, I think, quite a blizzard of deliverables that have been monitored in slightly different ways, with slightly different data, with some of which has been kind of locally owned, some of which has been corporately owned. So making sure that we've got a really clear prioritised set of improvement deliverables that we're all committed to, and that we're clear how we are delegating and empowering the organisation and the levels within it to deliver. So we've used this as an opportunity to refresh and update this approach. Moving on, Caris. Okay, so we have described these structures in our governance, in our operating model, as being the key programmes for programme groupings, if you like, for delivery. So we have performance and accountability, which sits with the service groups. So that's being clear where the service groups are delivering across all of the relevant domains. And we've described and defined how we will hold them accountable for delivery. We have the recovery and sustainability programmes, which are sitting corporately with exec leads, and the delivery unit provides support, but that is a very clear and separate but integrated programme of delivery from a performance improvement perspective and accountability perspective. And then we have the transformation programmes. So we have articulated how we will integrate the reporting across all three of those kind of high level of their portfolios, really. So there's 3 portfolio groupings to show how we will deliver grip and control over both finance, operational improvement and operational sustainability. Okay, if you move on, Caris. So that's what I've just described. So on the left-hand side, we've got our current service group structure, where we've got our service groups and their responsibilities and accountabilities for delivery. We've got R&S sitting there in the middle with the programmes underpinning the recovery and sustainability portfolio. And then on the right-hand side, we've described our transformation programmes. So what we're attempting to do through this strengthened approach is to bring all of that together so that we can review and hold to account through our performance and accountability framework. Okay, moving through. So these are the tiers for our operating model. So at tier 1, we have the board who will report into board formally on a bi-weekly basis. At tier 2, we have the board committees, and we describe there how we will report into the individual committees, and we'll come on to the specific performance information that we propose to submit to the committees. Tier 3, we ensure that we've got a report going formally into exec board, focusing on how we are hitting our performance targets, by exception on a fortnightly basis. And then at tier 4, we've got the monthly performance reviews and our cross-system planning and performance review meetings, which we have quarterly actually. So that's to make sure that as we are delivering against our priorities that we've articulated throughout the year, that each quarter we take stock and we look back on how we delivered over the last quarter, what we've done, what's dropped off, what do we need to change, and what does that mean for the plan going into the next quarter, so that we have a continuous cycle of performance review, assessment, and then adjustment to take into the next quarter. So we have a genuinely continuous approach to planning and performance management, which is 2 sides of the same coin. And then we have quarterly accountability meetings, and then at an individual level, then we have our individual performance management processes. Moving through, Caris. So this again is an important refresh. So we have proposed a prioritisation of the metrics that we present and monitor. So you will know that through our annual planning process, we've developed our Swansea Bay breakthrough objectives, which align with the Welsh Government priorities that we've discussed with them through the escalation meetings and the feedback that we've had through our annual plan. So it's a good job we chose the right ones for our breakthrough objectives. But important that they frame how we drive performance and hold to account for the rest of this year. We've also included as the priority metrics Welsh Government TI and enhanced monitoring criteria, because we obviously need to formally report on those. And what we've done is we've grouped those so that we don't have a kind of continuous repetition of the same target, but under a different heading throughout our integrated performance report and through the process. So we've also separated out monitoring of those criteria across the committees where they're appropriate, and where they don't sit neatly under a committee heading, they will go through to Performance and Finance Committee, although Performance and Finance Committee will receive full integrated reporting. So we have covered all of the priority metrics as part of our refresh approach. One for me, Karis. And those are the committees. I won't dwell on these. We have walked through this with independent members, so hopefully all colleagues will be familiar with the metrics that we've allocated to individual committees, and that's where we would expect the detailed interrogation of why are we off, what are we doing, what we're doing about it to be undertaken, and then we'll bring a highlight integrated report as always into board. Next slide, please, Karis, and that's just a continuation then of the metrics for targeted intervention and for enhanced monitoring. So lead committee for most of those will be Performance and Finance Committee. Next slide, please, Karis. I think there's one more of those. Yeah, so that shows all of the metrics that we are required to monitor against by Welsh Government and where that sits in terms of committee leadership. Final slide on that, and for completeness, those are the rest of them. So those are all the watch metrics that we are required to report on, that will get fed in, and we will provide the data, but we will only be providing the detailed updates on our priority metrics as part of our integrated performance report. Thanks, Karis. And also, we are now bringing in all of the, so as Tina was saying on the workforce storyboard, she's calling it, we now have a level of granular detail at service group level around both financial performance, workforce performance, that we are embedding as part of our monthly service group performance reviews to ensure that we are testing and holding to account. So it is an integral the budgetary framework is an integral part of our performance and accountability framework. And we've had some conversations earlier today about how we have discharged that. Moving on, and then I will stop talking, Jan, I promise. So these are the levels of escalation. So again, in performance and framework, we've very specifically articulated what the escalation levels look like, how they will be triggered, and what the consequences of escalation mean. Take the next slide. And we can skip past that one. So that describes how the process works. And then we have very clearly identified the roles and responsibilities from a performance and accountability perspective of all parts of our organisation, so that everybody understands their individual and collective roles in the process. So we've done roles and responsibilities for all staff, for board and for execs. Next slide, please, Karis. All through our corporate leads. Next slide, please, Karis. And at service group level, and obviously then the exec team. Next slide, Karis. And for completeness, then we've also added the terms of reference for each of the performance related and accountability groups that we have set up in the organisation. So we've got clear terms of reference for how the monthly performance review meetings are run. Next slide. Terms of reference for the quarterly performance planning review meetings. Next slide. And then the terms of reference for recovery and sustainability meetings, so that we are really clear, and for the transformation programme meetings, so that in our operating model, where we are holding to account for delivery, for planning, performance and delivery, we are really clear where those responsibilities fit, who's involved, and how we are holding to monitoring performance and holding to account. So this is a really whistle-stop tour, probably not as whistle-stop as you would hope. It's a whistle-stop tour of what is a complex framework document which underpins it, but has all of the detail in there. Colleagues have had the opportunity to see it. PNF will be the guardian of the process and the supporting documentation. It will continue to iterate as we improve and strengthen the approach and the reporting methodology, but hopefully you will be assured that the updated approach that we've taken ticks the boxes in terms of being able to evidence our performance and to discharge our accountability.
Well, that's a phenomenal amount of work for me. That could be one of your specialist subjects on the document. But Tina, and I know that you're making a link across to the individual capability policy so that the whole thing comes together at individual all the way through.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Marie's reference there, that so the objective setting will be through the PADR. You'll see we've got slight improvements in the PADR rate at 78%. We've still got further work to do to get to make sure get the 95% that we need for that. And then the capability policy complements this. So for on an individual basis, people aren't meeting our objectives or the performance concerns, we've taken through that process. But will be strengthen the wording, responsibility of the operational managers and corporate managers around that.
Thank you, Tina. Nuria, you wanted to come in?
I really like the framework. I think it's really helpful. And I really like the fact that you kind of linked it with our strategic goals. I have two areas for assurance though. One is around, I really do see the merits of prioritising performance measures, but it does leave a risk of us only focusing on a narrow set of numbers and possibly missing trends, which is something that's really helpful. So I welcome assurance that we have plans to mitigate that.
Only because if you ask me two questions, it will out my head. So on that, you're quite right. We are reducing the focus on the priority metrics that we have agreed. And the reason we've done that is because otherwise we don't do what you've just said. We don't see the things that, so we need to focus on the areas where we know we have our biggest challenges, and we need to provide due care and attention and effort to address those issues. So you'll see in the IPR that's coming next, actually we've put all of those priority metrics. We've now got a standardized reporting format, which says, what's the issue? What we're doing about it? What do we expect? What improvement can we expect? What are the risks? So we have got a much more detailed focus on those areas of importance. However, in answer to your other point, everything else, we don't pin everything else. Those are still there. They are watch metrics. So we will still continue to monitor. We will still continue to check the trends. And if anything goes off, it comes up into the priority metric.
That was the assurance I was seeking,
Yeah.
which is the executives will let us know when anything comes off those, so that we can be alerted to any trends that. And then on a second point, which is slightly different, there is lots of committees and forums involved in making this work. And I think that one of the common features that I see in internal audit reports has been the lack of attendance to forums internally, especially by senior management and clinicians. So could you assure us we have the capacity and the drive to ensure this will operate effectively? I was going to ask one about leadership, but Tina has covered that one. I think it's about that capacity to be able to feed the engine that we created in a way that actually works.
Yeah, perfectly fair challenge. So I think, and as I said at the beginning, I think this will iterate. Our governance will iterate. One of the things we've got at the moment is we've got our transformation programs here, and then we've got our recovery and sustainability programs here. In an ideal world, they'd be one and the same. And one of the challenges we have is actually understanding if we're trying to deliver improvement and performance enhancements in the transformation program, is it going to have an impact on our savings delivery? And we need to make sure that those two align. So there's a bit of artificial management at the moment across those two portfolios, because one is about driving performance and improvement and reshaping to deliver quality, and the other one is about really driving out savings. When we are more mature when we are more financially sustainable, we shouldn't need to have those as separate portfolios. They should be an integrated portfolio. That's not to be our ambition. But at the moment, because of the risk around our financial sustainability, we have to carve that out as a separate portfolio. But so there is a lot of work going on to make sure that we've got a really structured approach, which is why we produced the path in the way that we have. so that there is that clarity, but it also is flexible enough because we continually review and update through performance of the finance committee. Do need to tweak things and iterate them when we can. Any other comments? Jean?
Excellent piece of work, absolutely brilliant. You could submit that as a thesis for a number of.
Let Meg and Andrew know, they did all the work.
My concern is the translation into operational delivery, because that's very complex to work through. And there's a lot of information, and I, as a manager, would turn around and say, hang on a minute. There's 100 pages there, all of which is very relevant. You show me an idiot's guide for what I do and when I do it, and I'll be happy.
Yeah. You want an idiot's guide to the path? Okay. Challenge accepted.
And I think that's part of all the organising for success, and it is people training people to know the sort of, you know, the breadth and depth of their roles, isn't it?
Actually, what we like Claire's doing on the budget training, we will be doing the same things for this about accountability and leadership behaviours and values as well. Yeah.
So thank you very much. And as we said, well, we thank Meg and Andrew then, Marie and you as well for putting the whole thing together. So we've continued the changes. So, and the introduction of new committees, and I'm assuming committee chairs are happy with this approach. So we move to approve this updated performance and accountability framework. Note the link across to individual performance through the capability policy, and PSC will keep an overarching view on how this unfolds as the year goes on. Thank you. So Marie, we stay with you then to start with on oversight and escalation update, the next piece.
So can I take you through the IPR as part of that?
Yeah, so what I've got is oversight and escalation update, and then there's an appendix in the IPR.
Yeah. I was a step ahead.
And just to say again, we will take clinically optimized patients as part of the QSC AAA.
Okay, yes. So the reason I'd skipped on to the IPR is the answer to the exam question around how we are ensuring that we have appropriate oversight against the Welsh Government escalation criteria, our own breakthrough objectives, and the delivery of the priorities and the performance framework. So again, in line with the updated performance and accountability framework, we have strengthened the integrated performance report to ensure that that provides one version of the truth in as simple a way as we can. Don't know how to future. But in a very straightforward way, hopefully, against all of the blizzard of metrics that we need to report against. So we have, again, through the refreshed IPR, hopefully ticked all of the boxes that we've outlined in the paper. So again, we're just asking board to acknowledge that we've updated and strengthened the format to cover all those parameters and to receive this IPR and see whether or not it does indeed hit the spot.
Thank you. So you're now taking people.
Would you?
Well, we do need to, because the board needs to assure itself in terms of the here and now. So we do need to just go through the different sections and ask any high level questions that we have. Marie, please.
So I will skip through the front bit as quickly as I can. What I'm suggesting is I'll drive the slides and I'll invite relevant exec leads to comment on those areas of performance where we've got a red indicator.
And Pat, I'm sure that you will want to come back in on behalf of PSC with different.
I can highlight the things we were raising, yeah.
Thank you.
So we've now framed this under three sections. So we've got the summary of performance against our breakthrough objectives and the Welsh Government criteria. So those are the kind of priority metrics, if you like, that we have to report on. So that's a summary of what those are, and a very high level overview of where we are against those. Section 2 then provides those, as I was saying, Nuria, those more detailed reports on each of those metrics, so that board and finance committee and the supporting committees and board can be assured of where we are and what we're doing about those priority metrics. And then we have all of the other metrics, the watch metrics, as I described earlier, so that those are available for information and oversight. And if there's a requirement then to bring any of those out of the section 3 into section 2, then we have the opportunity to do that.
So if we move,
Section 1,
yeah, go on move through to.
so our breakthrough objectives, so that's a reminder of those are our priority metrics that we are using to frame the priorities in our annual plan, and they also align with those of Welsh Government in terms of the non-negotiable priorities that they expect to see delivery on. These are the, and we'll come, I'm just giving you a quick overview because I will move on to the
If we can, if we can stop and take these, please.
so in section 2,
Yeah.
Jan, we've got the detailed reports. So shall I stop on each of the metrics? So
Yes.
this is the overview. So this is just giving a high level overview. So first slide, really not great. Second slide, much better, but with some areas of concern. So if we move then into section 2, that gives us the opportunity then to address those specific issues. This one I'll just quickly talk to. In terms of our approach, so our methodology, the approach that we're taking to developing our planning maturity, the view between ourselves and Welsh Government is we're strong, we're strengthening. Obviously, the big red flashing light on the dashboard is the fact that we are unable at this point to develop a balanced 3-year IMTP or acceptable annual plan in the current context. So that's why we have a RAG rating of red there. I'm not going to stop on these. I'm going to stop on the red ones, but this is to show these are the priority metrics that we are monitoring and reporting on formally. So in the top there, you'll have our strategic objectives at the top, the enhanced monitoring target in the navy blue, and then how that relates to our breakthrough objective in the light blue. So you can see them all clustered together and what action is being taken. So the first one that we come to that's red, that is our cancer performance. So do you want to pick this one up, Craig, or shall I?
I think you alluded to the problems that we've got in delivering single cancer pathway, particularly in relation to cellular pathology, which is impacted particularly on urology and skin pathways. So I understand there is a plan to outsource pathology. That's going to take about 3 months to clear the current backlog. Once all of those results sort of come back, we're going to clearly have patients who are going to have diagnosis of cancer who are going to be outside of the 62 days. So we're likely to see a deterioration in terms of performance until it picks up again into, will probably be Q3, I would imagine.
This is a Q1 milestone target for Welsh Government. So at PFC overview on this?
Very concerned. When we looked at April, I mean, this was the February results at that point, it was down to 46%. It was the lowest we'd seen it in 20 months. So a lot of concern. Recognising, of course, as the pathology results come in, these creep upwards. It would then in March, it went up to 55%. But again, it's a concerning position. It's below the TI target, certainly away. But we did get that explanation. You know, it's mainly pathology results, as Craig said, that we're going to clear the backlog. So there's almost a trajectory you can build into the plan of where you will hit 76 by, but understanding this dip and there's an analysis of that now, so which is heartening, but it is an area that we would alert the board to.
And we'll take away as an executive to look at how we might accelerate some of that. And
Yeah.
be really clear when we're commissioning the external pathology, we're really clear how it's mapped across to the specific challenges that are described in the plan. So we've got more specificity in terms of what impact it's going to have and how quickly. And this is one that we will, I think there's a very legitimate conversation with Welsh Government about how they might support with some of this in terms of they understand where we've got some core constraints that we've had consistently that they will want to work with us on about how we might resolve on a sustainable basis. So we can bring that back.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yeah, just one little query that's occurred to me. When we're talking about cancer here, are we talking about Swansea Bay as the area, or Hywel Dda's activity as well? Did it?
In terms of what's reported in performance, it's only Swansea Bay that's reported. However, there will be cases that come from Hywel Dda, which will be impacted in terms of their performance as well, because of delays around pathology, etc. So, and understanding that even though that because the actual performance is reported from the originating health board. So if we're delivering regional services, yeah, and they are non-compliant, that impacts on Hywel Dda's performance as well. And some patients as well coming in from CTM as well, but a smaller number.
Possibly double check what we are reporting there, given I think about 50% of our outpatient work. Isn't that for Hywel Dda residents? I think Russell Banner's actually said that in the cancer centre. So we need
some
to
of
that, yeah. We don't need to, can we just please check that? Thank you. Nicola, did you want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just picking up on this, I wanted to check to see how are we supporting patients during this additional time frame of waiting?
I couldn't give you assurance in terms of the specifics on that. Obviously, the teams would be managing, and I suppose to put it into context as well, is that there are certain specialties where the pathology turnaround is very quick. There is others such as skin and prostate where they form most of the backlog. Some of in terms of the skin tumours, they will be actually removed. So actually that will also form part of that treatment plan. It's the problem we have is we wouldn't have the confirmed diagnosis. That's why in terms of our retrospective reporting, sometimes we go up 3 or 4%. We go up 3 or 4%, yeah, because of that reporting. So it will be specialty by specialty. Tend to turn around the breast reporting very, very quickly. Some of the other more specialist areas as well, colorectal, etc., they get turned around very quickly. So it'll be where those high volumes are that it will impact. The pathology team is still prioritising the cancer patients, but obviously there are a lot of patients in this this backlog who potentially could have cancer or have skin cancer, and we haven't got the final diagnosis of that. Yeah.
Louise and Liz.
Thanks. Looking across the figures for the other health boards, I mean, there are some differences, but they're not vast. And I wondered whether there were differences in or a rise in the population generally of certain types of cancers, and if so, what planning to actually account for those is going on, because it's obviously something. It's not just us; it's everywhere. And I'd be interested to know whether we are seeing more, which has an impact on the diagnostic timelines and things.
Hugo?
There's a Public Health Wales report on projected cancer growth because of an ageing population. There is a clear increase over the next decade in the volume of cancers that will come for treatment.
What we're going to do, Liz, I'll bring you in now, but we'll bring a more comprehensive report back on cancer, because it's also something we're looking at through the Regional Joint Committee on developing a regional approach to cancer care. So we'll bring a more comprehensive report back. But Liz, please come in.
I think specifically, Nicola, you're thinking about, because we've had conversations about it, people who are on a waiting list have been urgently referred. They think I could have cancer because they've got an urgent referral, and they're waiting. So I think what I would say is from an experience perspective, I would commit to looking at each of the specialties and asking them exactly how they contact and keep in touch with patients, because we have the RTT, we know the referral to treatment time, we know who these patients are, we're man marking. So I think part of that should be, and how are we keeping the patient informed, and how are we ensuring that they can access, for questions, etc. So I think, I'd be happy to look at that from a patient experience perspective.
And we'll bring that back as part of the bigger report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Just on this one, I think it's important to note that there is a proposal currently that's been developed by the mental health team to look at how they can convert some of the spend that is currently being incurred in inpatient out of area placements, which we know are not great from both a quality and perspective. So the team are looking at an opportunity to strengthen the hope and treatment team capacity to provide an alternative to out of area placements, which exec colleagues are currently just testing before we'll bring to board as a proposed way forward to deliver that trajectory as is described there. So that's quite an ambitious improvement, but we think there's an opportunity to do that at less cost than we are currently incurring. Just a quick heads up on that one. Oh. Screen. Okay, this one is the 30% reduction in avoidable pressure ulcers. Again, we haven't got that rag weighted red, so I'm going to skip over that. But if there's anyone,
Can I just come in on that? Because we have seen a significant increase in pressure ulcers. Now, we've done a huge amount of work around pressure ulcer prevention. We've rolled out education. We've got a tissue viability team who now validate every pressure ulcer, and we know our reporting has gone up, and that's good. However, we've also seen in more recent times that we've discussed at QSC the fact that we've seen severity and damage increasing. So most of our pressure ulcers are superficial and found early, but we have seen a severity in increase in the impact on our patients and the harm done, and that is multifactorial. And we talk about timely access to care, and all of this is our reporting on that. Timely access to care is significantly impacting on the harm of our patients. So patient volumes have gone up through January to March. Length of stay also went up, and delays in discharge, which comes back to the patients that we're holding on to because we can't move them on to the next place. And some long waits in ED and long waits for beds, etc. So our patients have been exposed to a higher risk. Therefore, we have to be able to respond to that higher risk. So we're looking at that education, that rollout of what we do around pressure ulcer care bundles, but it is linked to optimal patient flow. And optimal patient flow and right patient, right place, right time will help us to reduce this harm. But it is definitely, we've seen that through those January, February months.
Thank you, Liz.
And then this one is our handover position and performance.
That's another quarter one milestone.
Yeah.
So we've been away and we've kind of divvied up the areas. You can see in the charts how the test change had a positive effect. I'm sure that's been discussed at the board before. Since then, there has been a deterioration of it. There is a desire to reintroduce that. So on top of the actions that you're seeing here around the ambulance handovers with the clinical conversation before conveying the single point of access work, we're working on what we can do to reintroduce the same test change results for ambulance handovers. One of the things that is interesting, I did have a quick look at this. The
the difference between where we are this year and last year is about 80 days per month better on the ambulance handover than it was last year. So even with the deterioration, it's still at a slightly a better position than it was. There has been a rise in demand. I don't think that's particularly, I think it's probably within plan, but the actions on the ambulance handovers, 12-hour waits, and the speed in which people are seen in the ED department, the actions are all uniformly the same. So as I talked about the single point of access, call before convey, to look at the ambulance demand, but also looking at the discharges before noon. We're going to have a look at what we can do around discharging at the weekend to get the flow going. This was tested to a degree over the recent bank holiday and was shown that it worked, and we saw a real benefit of it around that still was in place on Tuesday and into Wednesday. So we know that can really work. The bit that I'm interested in from a delivery unit director position is, as we get the actions related to this going, it will also impact our ability to free up beds. And we've seen that actually in mental health, where they introduced red to green and they collapsed the number of external out of area placements. So getting the wards working, having internal professional standards and ward accreditation standards will really help on this. It's not in a great place at the moment. We intend to improve it.
This one's yours too, John. So this is, so we've got 3 now for UEC. So this is percentage of patients assessed by a clinical decision maker within 60 minutes, which we've seen dip down since just before Christmas.
Yeah, and that's all part of the same sort of thing, apart from the focus on, I can't remember what it's called. It's not called ratting, is it? Not rapid assessment and triage, it's something else. But it's around that. I'm trying to encompass the actions that we're doing that cover all 3 of these actions.
So we have 3 targets here that are TI targets. They're also related to our breakthrough objectives that form part of the UEC programme delivery. And it's part of an ongoing approach that we're taking to.
So are we taking it at the end of June? At the end of June, we're going to give a rounded update on this, as John has just described.
Yeah. I just wanted to flag one thing. Risk to delivery in this section talks about limited opportunity to invest in services. I think we need to just look at the wording around that in future. And John, I know that you are bringing a fresh look at the investments that have gone in, or the uplift in budgets that previously occurred. We know that was one of the things that was picked up in Deloitte. So I think it's important that we note that comment in the context of looking at what benefit and outputs from a range of things that we either specifically invested in that were new additionals like SDEX, which are really important and requirement from government, and the virtual wards that's been running. So I just wanted to just link it to that comment, if that was okay, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Could you pick a point up on that, because this graph shows that we are measuring in relation to when patients are triaged. We measure when the individual appears, whereas other health boards are not. They are measuring after triage. Is that right, John? So my question was, so is this statistical analysis accurate? Because we're measuring apples and pears with other health boards.
Could well be. I don't know. I'll check it out. Get back to you.
We need to check that out, because that's a really important point there.
We move on then.
Yeah, so this is our current performance for seeing out patients within 2-week period, which currently are. We are leading Wales in percentage of patients waiting over 26 weeks. So we are likely to see that trajectory improve. And Well, now, patients waiting less than 36 weeks for treatment. Got an amber position there. I won't stop on all of these because otherwise we'll be here all day. And in terms of R1 ophthalmology, again, green performance there. So this is our clinically, that's not patients waiting for follow-up. Okay, we've got an update on that.
Yeah, so the target is a reduction in those who've been waiting over 100% past their follow-up target date. This has been an ongoing issue for us as a health board, and one of the reasons that was flagged in terms of a de-escalation around planned care. There's a lot of discussions going on around the patients who are currently sitting on these waiting lists and whether they should be actually on a see-on symptom or pathway or a patient-initiated follow-up pathway. Also, we're looking from a primary care perspective in terms of is there anything that we can do within primary care to look at the patients who are on these on follow-up pathways to see if they're actually being regularly monitored within primary care to try and reduce those. If you look at the highest number, they're actually in ophthalmology. A lot of these patients are being seen by optometrists, and with the introduction of open eyes, particularly for glaucoma patients, we've got the opportunity to reduce the number that need now to come into secondary care and can be seen through a different pathway. So there's a number of strands that we're looking at in terms of tackling this.
This is being held in the outpatient group that sits under the Plan Care program. Yeah.
And this is one specific where Welsh Government feedback was transformation isn't at the pace that we need. So the sorts of things Greg's talking about, we need to make sure we've got very explicit actions against those areas with expected reductions, because if you take Betsy out of the picture, we are not performing well in relation to others. And if you think about the observation I made around if any funding's coming, if there is any additional money, it being linked to demonstrating that we're moving through those modernisation objectives. And this is one the World GIRF definitely has a view on. So we do need to make more rapid progress, and we've covered some of that in the plan, but we need to push it further, I think.
So Marie, can we just focus on red, right, please, because we need to conclude this item.
Just a quick heads up. So this is one where we are anticipating a deterioration probably before we can improve, because we've got a big bulge and backlog. The outpatient work that we did in March and April, which is coming through now to translating now into diagnostic demand. So there's work we're doing with Welsh Government to identify how big that bulge is and what the options are to address it. Just really for it's that. So CDIP healthcare.
So I'll take that on. Thank you. No, I think there are actually 4 slides on it, Mary. So the fact that the first one is CDIP, and I should say that the fact that we have actually had significant progress since compared to last year, so 24-25, we've actually had a decrease of up to 24%. The fact is, from a CDIF perspective, there is actually a core command which is actually chaired by myself, which is actually going through, and we are definitely raising the standards with regards to it and looking through how we can actually look through the antibiotic prescribing to our antibiotic prescribing, and also the change from IV to oral is better than the rest of the world standards, but still there can actually be more work done with regards to it. So from a CDIF perspective, the trend is actually it's better, but I think what is actually showing here is actually we're supposed to be having 6 cases per month, and we actually had 8 for that particular month. Staph aureus, again, we actually had an improvement compared to year on year, about 5%. The focus on Staph aureus is especially from the IPC side of things is how we are actually using the chlorhexidine impregnated washcloths. So that's all that is actually going on. And also on regards to the invasive devices present. The focus will be also on with regards to cannula preservance, so that the fact that cannulas are left behind, and also devices too. So again, there's a focal action with regards to the Staph aureus perspective. E. coli, again, the fact is that we did actually have a drop in the E. coli. If you actually look through the charts there, that's actually very clear. The problem with the E. coli, it's not just the hospital onset, it's actually what's actually coming from the community side of things. So again, we are actually focusing not just on what's actually happening within the hospital, what's going to the community. And the problem is we're actually having issues with regards to how samples are taken, antimicrobial stewardship with regards to it. Again, so there's a QI project that's actually going on in E. coli and such. And the last slide is Klebsiella. Now, this is actually, if you ask me, of all those four, this is actually my area of concern, because I'm supposed, we're supposed to be having 4 cases. It's literally jumped out and clearly know where the clinical areas are, where it is. Part of it is in hepatobiliary service, part is actually, again, with regards to urinary tract infections. Again, there is actually a focus that's actually going on with regards to the sampling and taking it from there. We did actually have a Klebsiella outbreak in December, January time, but that's actually settled down. So this is actually completely new. And with regards to the cases from the intra-abdominal sepsis, there's case reviews going on just to make sure there was no stones devices perspective. So again, something that is very much to be focused on the ICT perspective.
And this is just an overview of where we are in terms of complying with the de-escalation criteria around and targeted intervention criteria around MATNEO. So again, good progress there. Liz, was there anything specific you wanted to know?
You have that up onto your perinatal.
I will.
Yeah, okay. And then the local pathways of care, this is being picked up both through the UEC programme and with the Communities and Older Persons Board in the RPB. No quick fixes, but I think it will be fair to say that there is a lot of work now going on in both of those programmes to make sure that the actions that are being taken in both of them are aligning and it's a tricky one. It's a continuous work in progress, continued emphasis and daily drumbeat on looking at who's delayed and the reasons for them. So that's our current fitness. Yeah, we've covered that. We've covered finance. And then we've got section 3, which includes all of those watch metrics that I described earlier. Yeah.
Can we just go on to the stroke metrics, because that's one area PFC has raised repeated concerns over.
Yeah.
And actually performance in March has dropped again on some key ones.
Thanks, Pat. And what are the plans in place then to try and improve this situation?
I think we need to take it away and come back with a clear update. I think getting some of it ties into the UEC and making sure we're getting patients through in a timely way. I think we need a bit of a drains up on it because it's not consistently shift. Service group talk about improving, but it's not consistently, and we need. I think we need a bit of a look at this. And I noticed in some of the alerts, and you might want to comment on this. Having 24-hour ED consultants is not the barrier to us making improvements around this. We do need to get a regional planner moving to a comprehensive regional stroke unit, but there's more that we should be doing to make sure that these patients are getting there.
That's what they always raise, though, is the lack of 24/7.
So I think the fact is to have a stroke consultant come and give thrombolysis, it's actually the case. So even if during the daylight hours, it's actually been done by ED team. So that the fact that the stroke comes in, I mean, because the stroke consultants are actually doing clinics, they're actually doing ward rounds. So that's number one. The fact is when the 24-hour comes in, especially when there is actually a prolonged stroke, actually, if you're basically not within that 4 hours, you're actually at 12 hours. But then it's not just, you just don't need this stroke, you basically need radiologists too. So then you need to say whether the brain tissue is dead or not with the CTPA to thrombolysing. Here, I think the fact is it's actually our access to CT scan. That is actually the first thing. So once we get the CT scan on time, then the next question is the fact that if it was actually, let's say, for example, even if you can't differentiate, is it actually a bleed or is it actually a clot? Then this is where AI comes in. So we got Brainomix at the moment. So you can actually try to differentiate. So the clinician doesn't need to actually have a stroke consultant there. So you can actually differentiate and say, yes, I can use a clot buster. So I would say the fact is when you look through it, it's actually getting our pathway right. It's not about actually having the consultant presence. I don't think so. It makes any difference to it because as far as people can be trained to deliver that. And I think, and from another side of things, what we also have got, we got clinical nurse specialists who are actually staying on site till midnight. So most of the stuff is actually being picked up. But again, the access to the ward, basically within the 4 hours, making sure the speech and language is actually assessed. And that again becomes a flow issue rather than anything.
So we'll bring back separate reports on cancer services and stroke services and see if we schedule these for July or September reports. Okay, because they are really important issues, and you know the stroke issue has apparently been intractable for years, and we need to see if we can secure improvements. So we need to bring this to a conclusion now, Anne-Louise.
All I was going to say is that report also look at sort of culture, staff, etc. Because I think that's critical. Because you're right, that the figures haven't really got better, and I'm just concerned about the whole area because it must be very depressing if you're working there and you're not actually being able to do what you need to do.
Yeah, we'll bring the whole thing back. Thank you very much. So we so obviously there is such a degree of interest as this report gets refined. I think we really will have to think about what do we need to focus on at full board level, because there's so much in here. Some more of it could go in the regional perhaps, and we need to think perhaps CAT as well, PSC and the role there and QSC. But clearly the updated format is of great interest, gives us an awful lot of information, and we can very clearly see those matters that we are in escalation for and where performance is not as it needs to be. And we can identify hotspots as we've done today. So we've considered the report, acknowledged the issues raised, discussed some key issues. And then Marie, if we can take back the thanks for everyone who is updating this report and refining it regularly and see if we can have yet a further refinement line. Thank you very much. So Claire, we move on to the month 1 financial report then.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the report reflects on the financial position, but also the key activities that we undertook in month 1. The report summarises the deficit plan as at the 31st of March, which is broken down into the first table, acknowledging that this outturn is an acceptable position and does not meet our statutory duties, but it gives us a run rate that we compare against ourselves against. The underlying deficit was 108.4 million, with growth and inflation of 40.5 and commissioning impacts of 5.2, which took us to 154.1 million. Those are offset by Welsh Government income, but also the savings plan that we've talked about a lot today of 65 million and deficit of 76.6 million. At the end of month 1, we reported a monthly outturn of 8.51 million. That really reflected gains from inflation and phasing, particularly around energy and some maternity gains. But what it also showed is grip and control gains from vacancies and variable pay that added to 1.12 million. As it's month 1 and we haven't yet agreed to finalise a plan, the next table really just demonstrated the relationship between the run rates, assuming a 76.6 million deficit, which would equate to a 6.4 plan for the first month. If we were to outturn at a 53.2 million, obviously that would be a 4.4 million outturn. As you can see, as an ending the first month at 8.5, therefore showed that we were 2 million adrift from the 76 and 4 million adrift from the 53.2 million. And again, that really emphasises the importance of the 65 million savings plan, which again, we've assumed for planning purposes is split 1/12, but actually every month that we slip against those savings plans makes it that we have to run harder in the later months to recover our position. The other financial key performance indicators, as it was month 1, we didn't have to report cash or capital. But we did note that the public sector pay policy outturned at 97.6%, which is above the target of 95%. During the month, we've obviously been very busy with year-end close and audit, but we've also, as we talked today, been doing the budget setting process. Budget letters have been issued to all 68 senior budget holders in the organisation, and it sets out the allocation of the deficit plan for 26-27 based on the plan we submitted on the 31st of March. It aligns to the budget principles and approach set out in the briefing that I provided execs on the 16th of March and IMs on the 17th of March. The budgets have been issued based on funding available as provided by Welsh Government, and it sets out the target savings for each budget holder based on a 65, noting that that will be supported by the delivery unit and execs leads. All of the above approach meets the requirement of the standing financial instructions. And obviously the next phase of that will be for budget holders to sign and return those letters. And that will also assure that we align with the requirements of the standing financial instruction. As reported before, training is underway and audit and the finance and performance, the performance and finance team will track progress of returns of those letters. And it also set the importance of showing the access to the click view toolkit to see the active management of those budgets alongside our budget management process. As part of the annual plan, we've also signed off and agreed our LTI process, and those are assumed as per the annual plan assumptions. We have formally agreed and signed off as part of our annual plan, and that again ensures that we're in compliance with SFIs and the Welsh Health Circular. As Marie alluded to earlier, we also undertook a regional workshop alongside Hywel Dda and Powys as part of our regional working to understand the process and opportunities around improving the LTAs between us. That went well. We've identified that we need to be more consistent, have more relevant and more effective methodologies between us. And we have another meeting scheduled for the end of June. So we are proactively looking at how we can improve and support that process going forward. We will also work with Cwm Taf Morgannwg and take a similar approach. The report also then highlights some key risks. Delivery of the savings is notable, along with actions to mitigate growth and inflation, energy, and also we recognise the resident doctor contract changes as a risk going forward. So board members are asked to consider the month one position, which was a deficit of 8.5 million in month. It does show some grip and control within that and savings generated, but it recognises it was significantly below the run rate we would require for £65 million savings. We acknowledge the current savings plans position and actions to focus to shift plans as part of that with the Recovery and Sustainability Board into much more green and red. We are working on our budget setting process as per plan and the delegated requirements within that and the LTA approval relating to the annual plan assumptions. We've also recognised that there are some risks and we've identified those as part of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Do you want to say anything from PSC on month one?
Yeah, very briefly, just on a point of clarity, Claire. Yeah. Obviously, the plans are going to give us a savings trajectory by the end of June. Is the 1/12 allocation of savings that's in now going to be replaced by that more evidence-based trajectory?
No, we're going to keep it at the 1/12.
Okay.
And then we'll show variation to plan.
Right.
Against that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we received the we looked at it really about what kind of evidence it gave of grip and control. It was obvious evidence in terms of holding the vacant posts and the control around those, which is compensating to some extent, but variable pay is still too high. In terms of variable pay, though, still, as I said before, still at 4.7 million. It didn't give us a lot of comfort. And the savings, £1 million in month, but I think 0.7 of that was like a non-recurrent. So again, on variable pay and the savings, there isn't really evidence there at the moment, but the posts are being held, which was
And Louise, I think that was one of your points,
Yeah, it was,
wasn't it?
it was, yes, although it was good to see that there was a bit of grip and control on the variable pay, it was disappointing overall. Yeah.
Nicola.
Very detailed report. Two questions from me. Firstly, how are we communicating through the whole organisation of the financial crisis that we're in? Secondly, what are the consequences to budget holders if they don't stay within budget?
Yes, thank you, Nicola. Really good question. So as part of the normal monthly team brief, we are cascading and showing progress against the actions that we're taking in terms of sustainability and recovery. So we're doing that to our senior leaders once a month as part of our brief. Further down the organisation, as the budget holder, as part of the budget holder training, I've done what's called a State of the Nations video, where I take people through very much what we did at the partnership board, explaining, going right back to basics as to where's the money coming from, and then taking this through how we spend it, how we allocate it, how we control it through the budget process, and the really important role of the budget holder, and then further information around how we can support that through finance. I know that a number of my colleagues have asked for a copy of that to share with their team. So we're trying to do that aligned to what our normal comms are, but also to complement that through specific areas of focus within the senior leader team and beyond. The consequences of budget holders, I think this is going to be it's a really important point. So we've come up with an escalation process, reminding people that within their job description there is an important role to play, which is a budget holder and managing budgets efficiently. There will be an escalation part for those that don't return their letters in a timely manner. And we also are doing that in a compassionate way, really trying to understand what it is driving that inability to sign, and making sure that there aren't any mitigating circumstances. And alongside Tina then, and alongside is to look then how we formalise the budget holder escalation process in the event that there is a reluctance to sign the letters which cannot be addressed otherwise. So we are looking to formalise it, and we are looking to do that in alongside our pod business partners. So it's fair and compassionate.
And Rina, how do you pick up in more on this? What is underneath this reluctance to sign these letters?
Yeah.
And what are the barriers, and what might we need to do from an OD and support perspective?
I certainly think it's worth looking at. I mean, obviously the training will assist within an argument. Arguments were put in the past. People haven't been potentially trained, and then they didn't have access to the system. So again, we've got this, what's it called? ClickSense now. So yeah, okay, I'll put it down on the agenda.
Okay, Charlotte?
My question may be a silly one, and it's having clarity on what they're actually signing for. Is it their commitment to make the savings that are required in their portfolio? What are they signing?
So there's quite a detailed letter. It's about 20 pages, I think. So it's very explicit as to it's not just signing for to balance their budget and deliver their annual plan activities within that. But alongside Marie and her team, we've added into the letter the requirement to not only manage your financial allocation, but deliver your breakthrough objectives, but also the objectives that we've underpinned in our IMTP. Right. And we've also correlated that with workforce colleagues. So there's a clear correlation between what the activities required, the funding we're allocating to deliver that, and the resource associated with that. And when we've sent the letters out, we've actually sent a little booklet explaining all of that to them. And we've done it in a way that it's open door. If they want further clarity, then please feel free to do that. Yeah.
So, Rina, as you said, if you can follow through on that. And Richard, can you talk through? Because I know Anne-Louise talked about, we keep on saying it's this level of overspending as opposed to another level of overspending. It gives a sense that overspending is what we do. And of course, we are spending money we don't have.
Yeah.
So in terms of the messaging, Richard, how is that going?
So the messaging is, there's a couple of different tiers to it. So Claire has now gone into a huge amount of detail around the leadership and the management and messaging around things. And there's a huge amount of detail behind that, you know, including the 25-page accountability letter. I think in terms of staff in general, there's a need to recognise, I suppose, that there's a moving feast here in terms of the position. So what we're trying to do is update on a periodical basis in terms of where we've got to. The generic campaign is around making every pound count, as I referred to earlier in this meeting. That's a really, really important message. But as is then the supplementary message that we can't spend money we haven't got. So there is the sort of sense of getting the balance right between being positive and optimistic, whilst also pointing out that there is a burning platform that we need to address here. So we predominantly address that via weekly messages that go out, but obviously there's the campaign that we've got as well. And Claire's already mentioned the team brief, which is an important part of that cascade process, as is the top of the meeting as well.
And it is really important, isn't it, that people understand what management actually is.
Yeah.
It's about managing people, managing money, managing delivery, improvement and change. That's the job. So, Tina, perhaps, you know, and we need to do that when people are applying, as well as people we have, need to understand what the role of management actually is. Claire?
Yeah, it was interesting. I think I've had more emails and questions about this than we have done in the recovery and sustainability. So I think the budget letters have really hit home because it's now become an individual's responsibility directly, as in the letters, and it's really sort of starting to hit as to what the requirement is to deliver that. And we're here to, we all want that to happen. We all want to have a balanced plan and move forward. So I think it's been I think it's been the most engaging process that my team have had in really starting to, in explaining what their budget is and what they need to do to deliver it. So it'll be interesting to see really the rate of return now as we go through June, once those letters start coming back.
So I've got Pat, Nuria, then and Louise, then we'll bring this to a conclusion. Pat?
Only very briefly. I mean, that is going to throw up results anytime you put that, it's definitely going to. And I think in terms of that leadership, being clear about the numbers, the overall, what the deficit of savings is necessary. I don't know whether it's necessary in terms of all staff emails to label a figure, because that figure moves and shifts all the time, doesn't it? So you could just explain the very challenging context of our finances, the NHS Wales finances, but to actually name, because now you named 55, now 60, it alters. So whether we need to, and an all staff thing, but of course we need to tell staff how challenging it is. But you maybe just need to have a bit of a think about, because it is quite demoralising, I think, isn't it, to see.
Nuria?
There was a question from the very beginning for me, which was about the progress against our savings plan and the progress against our target and the variation between that. And I think that there is a point there where we need to, which was your initial question, which I think we need to go back to understand more. I think when it comes to communication, I think that there's something really powerful, which is about translating the finance into people and people's life, and the reason why we're here, which is to improve and to become better as an organisation. I think is that part of improvement that maybe we need to find a way. And what I was thinking of is that, you know, we've got some really good behavioural psychologists across the NHS that we could tap into to find out how we could do this better, maybe as a suggestion.
Thank you, Nuria. And I'm sure Tina will pick that up really. Anne-Louise, final point.
Yeah, final point. It's a bit of a semantic point, but I'm a bit troubled by the wording. For example, at the bottom of page 3 of the report, where it states the health board would need to overspend by no more than £4 million a month in subsequent months. It may be a correct statement, but it sort of puts overspending as an acceptable thing. It sounds as though overspending is something that we do, whereas we're trying very hard not to.
Yeah, we're going to pick that up on messaging as we go up. So we consider this in some detail as it is the month one report, and we acknowledge the issues and the position that we're in. We obviously, as we asked to support the position in regard to our reserves, and we're obviously taking great cognizance of the risks that we know are already in the system. and that we will be monitoring very closely, and particularly through PSC. Thank you. Jean, let's move on to your AAA report then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Well, as we know, the Quality and Safety Committee convenes bi-monthly, and the agenda, relevant documents and minutes of the meetings are accessible on Swansea Bay Health Board website. I just want to preface the narrative by saying that the board will see two matters in the report relating to the perinatal committee report and the mental health transformation report, both referenced under advisory. However, I can assure the board that these matters are progressed with a constant alert eye cast over every performance with stringent regularity in order to inform and satisfy risk profiles. So I don't want board to think that we have relegated the importance of those two committees to an advisory position. So if we go back to alert, and there were a number of alerts when we held our last meeting in April, the perinatal committee report, which I think we're coming on to. So I will leave that as read, Chair, because Liz will be taking us through that. The Quality and Safety Group highlight report, we've already mentioned the pressure ulcers and the figures in terms of the January increase, the deep damage increase to 13%, including 3% severe harm. So I think Liz has also covered that. There are 10 outstanding items requiring completion by the 31st of March under the National Institute for Health and Care NICE guidance. So we will expect an update on that in our next meeting in June. The clinical outcomes and effectiveness group, the updates provided on the upper gastrointestinal bleed audit, national audit of care at end of life, and evidence-based interventions. The risks remain around completion of national guidance requirements, so we will keep an eye on that. Neath Patel would continue to experience delays in duty of candor compliance and nationally reportable incidents backlogs are partly due to external review times. One remains open pending required amendments and cannot yet be closed. Controlled drugs in internal audit findings from Morriston Service Group indicate that there are gaps in oversight, governance and assurance processes requiring the Health Board wide action once reviewed by the Audit Committee. The Mental Health Transformation Programme will inevitably carry the most potential for mental health risks and harm in Swansea Bay. The Service Group Risk Register identifies risks to delivery of safe care. The Service Group Nurse Director has led the review of the risk register and it is regularly updated. And as we said earlier, there is still an amendment to come on that. Quality clinical governance and improvement capacity for the mental health and learning disability service group is limited and significant work is needed to provide adequate governance and assurance. I've just listed the two tables there for board to see the number of risks that sit under the various themes at both the strategic and corporate risk registers. So we then come on to the strategic and corporate risk registers. 4 risks relating to mental health and learning disabilities within corporate risk register include difficulties in recruitment of medical staff, provision of an integrated health record and effective information sharing, CAMS performance standards due to workforce deficit, adolescent admissions to adult mental health wards, which is that latter point is a national issue. The 2 risks that pertain to the mental health and learning disabilities within the strategic risk register include organisation and resource to deliver the required transformation within the mental health and learning disability services, maintenance of the estates across the health board, and with specific reference to adult mental health, forensic services and learning disabilities. And Abby made reference to that those estates issues earlier in the board meeting. Next alert was the Quality and Safety Performance Report. This disappointing cancer performance, as we've also discussed this afternoon, was understood to be driven primarily by the pathology reporting backlogs and significant laboratory and medical workforce shortages. I understand, or the committee was given to understand, that a recovery plan was in construct. In terms of external inspections, which we now have introduced to the Quality and Safety Committee, there's an imminent draft awaited of the mental health team report, which we will hear in June. Stroke performance, we've just discussed that as well, so I won't reiterate. Clinically optimized patients, one or two sort of cosmetic references to this. But clinically optimized patients continue to represent a material and ongoing quality and safety risk. And therefore, the committee requested regular updates until demonstrable improvement is achieved. Every Quality and Safety Committee will require an update on the clinically optimized patients, even if it's an oral update. There are 234 patients at the time of writing this report, equating to 6,300 bed days. There's no current assessment of delay-related harm associated with prolonged hospital stay. That is deconditioning, inpatient falls, and hospital-acquired infection. Signal database is used by local authorities and our health board to record patient information, including reason for retention. For example, awaiting packages of care. A deconditioning early warning indicator, I better use that acronym, do we, will be used as part of the board quality metrics. How this will sit with the duty of candor as yet to be determined, so that's something else we'll be keeping an eye on. Andrew Nelson is to build information on the 4 pathways within the discharge to recover and assess to enhance everyone's understanding of the pathways. The last alert was the listening to people, the magnitude of the cultural change this programme will demand across the organisation, together with the appropriate allocation of resources. Given that there is no funding to deliver this service, this will be challenging to implement. However, I understand from Liz that good progress is being made on that. And there has been strong collaboration across service groups, supported the implementation preparations. Training programmes, as we wrote, are still to be designed, so we need an update on that. In terms of assurance, the Quality and Safety Group highlight report, there were no new never events reported corporately within this reporting cycle, which is good news. Perinatal Committee report does not currently have any elements of care that would flag as a negative outlier or any stillbirths. Neonatal deaths have been reported through the MRACE process. Sorry to steal your thunder on that bit. Right. The Mental Health Transformation Programme report. In January 26, a programme board chaired by the Chief Exec was established to strengthen oversight and organisation leadership, ensure alignment with national strategies, regional programmes and organisational priorities. The Mental Health and Learning Disability Service Group will undertake a review next month of the new safety planning framework implemented in August 25 and will report learning and findings to the August 2026 Quality and Safety Committee. The Ombudsman final public interest report. The outstanding actions detailed in the report were in hand and close to completion on the agreed deadline date. Quality and Safety Performance Report. Work was progressing in reducing the backlog of complaints. We advised the board that the patient story heard was a powerful cardiac case from Moleston, and it highlighted exemplary multidisciplinary care. Commitment to review and revise where necessary standard learning and feedback processes with primary care, as well as the need to map and review post-critical care, psychological support provision for patients was discussed. That was the psychological support for patients after they were discharged. The proposed health board-wide learning response forum aims to integrate learning from incidents, complaints, claims, mortality reviews and patient feedback. And again, then we have advice for the Perinatal Committee report, which will develop and monitor improvement plans in response to the independent review for Wales self-assessment and other improvement actions, which will be triangulated when any identified gaps will be added to the overall improvement plan. Perinatal committee meets monthly and reviews all key metrics for perinatal services. The mental health transformation programme, risks of harm that were not yet fully addressed included environmental safety constraints, ligature risks, blind spots and outdated ward layouts continue to pose safety challenges. Some improvements are dependent upon capital investment and cannot be resolved at pace. Issues were workforce fragility, high vacancy rates in some professions, reliance on temporary staffing and gaps in MBT skill mix continue to increase the risk of inconsistent care, delayed recognition of deterioration and reduced therapy engagement. Access and flow pressures, there were long waits, delayed discharges and out of area placements. I understand there are 16 out of area at the moment, remain significant contributors to avoidable harm, particularly for people in crisis or with complex needs. Variation in clinical practice, inconsistent approaches to risk regulation, care planning, physical health monitoring and therapeutic intervention continue to create variation in safety and outcomes. Data quality and insight limitations, several key metrics rely on manual data collection or incomplete data flows, limiting the ability to identify emerging risks early to triangulate information reliable. And that's something I'll take forward to the DDRI committee. System level dependencies, some risks cannot be mitigated by the service group alone and require wider organisation or system action. Capital funding for essential estates improvements, digital infrastructure to support automated reliability, national workforce shortages affecting recruitment and retention, interdependencies with local authority and third sector partners, crisis response and discharge pathways. Having read all of that, I'm sure you will appreciate that this is an area that Quality and Safety Committee will major on as we move forward. The committee will keep the board updated on any developments regarding risks in relation to the above matters. The last point we wanted to make was the patient travel policy. Equality and access risks remain unresolved for vulnerable patient groups. These require clarification and may need an equality impact assessment.
Thank you, Jean. And that was a really, really thorough and rigorous analysis of the work of Quality and Safety. We've covered a phenomenal amount of work there and the different aspects of Quality and Safety agenda. I just want to focus now on clinically optimised patients. A number of the other areas are covered, and this will come particularly onto the perinatal committee now. But Craig, I think you want to say something to the board on clinically optimised.
Yeah, I may have advised the board inadvertently previously in terms of clinically optimised patients. None of the delays were due to health factors within our own gift. Approximately 10% of the delays are actually factors related to actions that need to be taken within the health board. So whether that be from a nursing, AHP perspective, and then there is a percentage then which are both a joint health and social care, and then there are an element that are solely social care. So apologies if I inadvertently advised.
The actual number today then, and how many?
So the actual number today, excluding mental health, is at 160. And of those, the top reasons are 36 awaiting re-implement community care package, 17 awaiting completion of assessment by a social worker, 17 completion of a best interest decision, 12 social worker allocation, and 11 awaiting the care home manager to visit and assess and provide outcomes. So in terms of the top reasons, those are the top reasons from the position. So this position is updated twice a week to inform the meetings that are held between ourselves and local authorities, which is currently facilitated by the RPB, to look at the delays, and that's the information that's provided twice a week in detail, and we go through patient by patient, particularly those who are the top delays.
And we do see from your report, Jean, that Andrew Nelson is going to do some work in relation to refining the data that we have. But John, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think it's, when I'm looking at flow things, I think one of the important things that any organisation should do is to maximise the things we have complete control of. So I think it's really important to have a very clear understanding of what the delays and the complications are that we have control of. So those ones that you were talking about, I can't split out between mental health and non-mental health.
Sorry, John, I said this excluded the mental health one.
Yeah, no, I don't have the ability to exclude that, or I can't work it out at the moment. So I've been having talks with colleagues in the therapies around how we make sure there aren't any internal delays waiting for therapists. The same with nursing assessments and medical assessments. If we can get those numbers down really, really low, then I think that enables us to have better conversations with our council and social care colleagues around what more we can do on that side. There is some work that Andrew Nelson has also done around the changes to when we assess people. So in 2024-25, there was about 60,000 reassessments done where those were changed. Each time we do that, that adds delay. So that's something, again, I think we can own and see what we can do on those things. Of those, about 30,000 of them were downgraded. So they went from a higher pathway to a lower pathway. So I think we need to look at these sorts of things, see what we can do.
And we are happy if we can bring a specific report back on clinical optimizations to the July meeting, incorporating all those points. Rena, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just, given that, you know, in a sense, this would resolve a lot of our difficulties and help us with our financial sustainability. It seems it's absolutely clear that we get this flow right. And I just wondered, have we looked at best practice from elsewhere, not just Wales, beyond, in terms of how do you work with local authorities and care homes, etc., to get people out quickly? And are there any other techniques that we can use and adopt in terms of best practice from elsewhere? Because we literally have been looking at this for years and we don't seem to really have cracked it, in my view. And I mean, perhaps, you know, perhaps I think we get in there and the numbers don't seem as high as they were, but it is clearly really key to our success as an organisation that we sort this out.
Rena, and we're going to be picking up your points in part of the wider report that we'll bring back. But Pat, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, some of the points that you raised, John, come about really because we're still on an assess to discharge model and would be resolved if we discharge then assess them, because, you know, and really speak that they did mention CONTAF as one of the areas in PFC that we could look at because they seem to have lower numbers or whatever. But also it's a national conversation. There's nearly 1,300 across Wales. They reckon ours cost 18 million last year. Replicate that across Wales, you're talking £100 million. It means ridiculous that it isn't an ongoing national conversation about that policy and how it's approached.
Thank you. Well, Jean, then Nuria, then we'll pull this to a conclusion. Jean.
Two observations I would make is, one, I know we're on a digital journey to maturity. I think we've now had lots of dashboards set up that are really doing no more than counting numbers. So perhaps it's something that we can take into the digital committee to say, how do we move that maturity of setting up the dashboard to give us the deeper information that we will need to better inform our move forward. And the second point I would make, which has now jumped out of my head, Can't remember the second one, Chair.
I'm sure Andrew Nelson will be at work on this, in terms of.
He's a very busy man.
Yes.
I know what it was. I know what it was.
Yeah.
It was, if we are having these figures, and we this afternoon have talked about figures being not correlating through different reports. Have we got a programme? And again, sorry to ask it here because I should ask it in digital, but have we got a programme that is designed to sense check the validity of the information we're getting out?
Again, we'll have to pick, well, Andrew will pick all that up, Jean, thank you. Julia?
I just wanted to say that it is a bit frustrating to be sat at this board for so long and hearing the same comments around clinically optimised patients, because I think some of the analysis that John was asking for is questions that we've asked as independent members. I think also when we talk about best practices, we have had reports on what looks like radical solutions to this problem, but we've never implemented them. So I think there is a real need now to take this a further step. And when we talk about pace, this is one of the areas that we really do need to implement at pace.
Thank you, Julia. So we're going to come back to this now with a specific report in the July board meeting. Thank you. So we'll take the perinatal committee and the dental update, and then we'll have a quick. So Liz, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. And the board is now used to seeing this perinatal committee report at every meeting. I think we've significantly increased the openness and transparency, the data available, and the comparison to national benchmarks around the quality and safety outcomes in maternity and neonatal. I would say that, as Jean alluded to, we go into a lot of detail at QAC on this perinatal report, and currently performance is broadly within expected national ranges, so there's nothing to highlight from a negative perspective. Just a couple of things to inform board of. Badgernet went live fully this month, and we have been spending a lot of time implementing that, but we know that will give us even richer data and opportunity to interact and engage with our women and families. And there are a number of quality improvement initiatives that are ongoing. Mortality and outcomes, again, is we are not an outlier in that. We're around UK average and improving. There's no specific concerns that I would want to raise. The one thing I do want to highlight is, as we know, our cesarean section rates are rising, and that's reflecting national trends. That is having an impact on our postnatal ward, so we're going to review our staffing on the postnatal ward. The other one really is our HIE cases, our hypoxic injury cases, and we monitor those on an ongoing basis. We report into Embrace, which is the national reporting across the whole of the country. But if we look at our peak of HIEs in 2023, we've now, on a rolling 12-month programme, seen a 72% reduction. Now that is multifactorial, and we talked about it at the last perinatal committee. There are so many factors that play into this, but I think that's something that, you know, was particularly highlighted through the review. But we are maintaining safety around that. You can see all the patient experience data and the workforce data. Again, training numbers are good. We meet BAPM standards, we meet Royal College standards. We've outlined the risks that are on the service risk register. I don't think, Chair, there's anything that I particularly want to bring out, but I'm happy to take any questions. Ron?
Thank you. And I just add on to what Liz mentioned, a couple of things. First and foremost, the report does not have any negative outliers. I will actually ask committee board members just to have a look through page 9 and 10, which actually reflect on the Embrace data, which was actually shown the improvement that the health board has actually made with regards to it. I'll also need to also look into page 5, which is actually on the SSI side of things, which was actually where we were previously an outlier. That has been made And finally, with regards to the 72% decrease in the hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, that's actually happened over the years too. So those are the striking things from this particular report. But again, the fact is, it's actually, the data is actually put on a rigorous basis. It's actually being acted upon. And also the fact that the relationship between the maternity and the neonatal team is very healthy, and they're working in tandem with regards to make sure that patient care is.
Rena, Andrew, then we'll close this. Miriam?
Just wanted to check, there's a line in there that says the mothers giving birth in Swansea Bay were less likely to live in areas of high deprivation that across other parts of the UK as a whole, and I wanted to check that that's actually right, because that seems odd, given that Swansea has relatively high rates of deprivation by UK standards. So I don't know whether it's just a mistake. And then I wanted to find out, why is our capturing of ethnicity so low? This is really important.
Yeah.
You know, the data, it's not just for service planning, but tracking trends that show relating our equalities duties.
Okay.
So I was wondering what we were doing around that.
So Liz, I'm going to take the questions from Rena and Andrew, then ask you to compile your response.
I can't find it in the report list, but I asked last time whether we could find out how many births that take place in the birthing unit.
Yeah.
Is it in the report? Because I'm missing it. Possibly is.
We brought it out last time, and I have specifically asked that we have a report on the midwifery-led unit, standalone report, because we'll be coming up to 18 months, nearly 2 years. We have had 300 births there. Just recently, we hit our 300th in the 18 months that it's been open. Andrew?
Yeah, it was around the patient experience survey, and the trigger for that being the computer system that can no longer do that. And I just wanted some assurance really that we would going to just leave it like that, that we would put a manual workaround, because it seems to me that some obvious manual workarounds that would achieve the objective without us blaming the computer system.
Yeah, so Liz, can you answer Nuria and Andrew?
Yes. So can I go and look at that specifically? Because I know that we've gone through the data in this report, and we understand how we've pulled this report together. But Nuria, I'll come back on the deprivation issue specifically, because I think it's to a certain population we're looking at. Can't remember your ethnicity. Ethnicity. Yeah, that has been an issue for us, recording ethnicity. Within Badgernet now, it's a very clear field, and we know that our ethnicity, our recording of ethnicity will go up. So it's something that you can't bypass when we put a woman onto Badgernet. But you know the work that we have been doing around our communities and populations is significant. So it is just the recording of it that hasn't happened. We're doing specific work with our communities, but in Badgernet there will be a particular field to record that. So I fully anticipate that will go up. So the patient survey issue is a national issue, but that doesn't stop us and our work around patient experience in gathering the information anyway. I think the work, which is, some of it's outlined in here, which our patient experience lead midwife has been doing, has been exceptional, and we will make sure that we gather the information.
I was more concerned about the fact that we were asking whether were no longer members, the question, and whether we were making sure that didn't happen.
I mean, and just on the, I've got a dashboard for maternity. There were 12 births in birthing centre in April. The standalone birthing centre.
I would have in the report, but it just struck me that in terms of how many staff would that represent in terms of.
So there is we spent a lot of time building up, going back into the midwifery birthing unit, and you know, we are staffing it on a 24/7 basis at the moment. I think there's a number of issues that I want to bring out in that report that I'll bring back. So as a midwife, you need to have a number of births to keep the skills up, etc., etc. So it isn't just how many staff are there, it's the fact that we need to keep them skilled, we need to make sure they're safe, etc., etc. So I'll bring that report through QSC into this.
I think the comparative for the issue that Nuria raised is that's across the UK as a whole. It's not just across Wales.
No, it's not. Yeah, I think we need to check.
Thank you. So Liz, we'll take we'll record matters you wanted to advise us about, I'm sure it's on time to alert us to. We note that you're going to bring back another report, a standalone report from the recruitment unit, and we've got a number of data capture and data analytical issues, including deprivation, ethnicity, etc., use of technology, that perhaps you could bring those particular points back in the July report to the board. And of course, that will also see, hopefully, our final improvement plan, as we said this morning, and also want to reference the workshop on the 17th and 18th, different things going on. Yeah. Okay, thank you. So Craig, can we take the dental update, please? And we'll take it as papers read. So really, it's just the key points that you want to bring to them on the
Okay, yeah, so the changes to the dental contract represent the biggest change in dentistry for 20 years, moving from activity-based units of dental activity to prevention and outcome. You'll see within the paper the recommended segmentation then for patients, which can be varied by health boards. One of the biggest changes is the introduction of the dental access portal. So dentists are no longer able to hold a waiting list. Any new patient has to be allocated by the health board, so by the primary care team, to the individual dentist. I've got to say this hasn't been universally accepted by certain parts of the dental hierarchy, but it's in place. You'll see as a consequence we've had some handbacks of contracts. But just to give you some context, since we introduced the dental access portal, we've had about 18,000 patients who register onto the portal. Our current waiting list is around about 4,500. So you can see that a lot of those patients have already been allocated. I think the biggest concern is going to be, will we run out of new patients? Because initially the dental access portal hasn't been particularly well publicised, and we, along with all other health boards now, are working on that. And therefore, we will need to monitor closely each practice's performance against the segmentation rates. We have the ability to flex that during the year, should we need to do so. But early indications are that the contract has been accepted positively by the profession. I actually chair the All Wales Dental Contract Implementation Group, so I get regular feedback from that. But it is still early days, and once we get a few months down the line and we see how activity is being delivered, then we'll get a clearer assurance around this new contract.
Okay, Anne-Louise, I know you've had some comments on this.
I have, although Hugo put his hand up, so he may.
Well, Hugo, do you want to go first?
No, just there is more of a prevention element to this contract, so just welcome that very much from a public health perspective. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I've got Anne-Louise, Nuria and Rina and Steve.
Thanks. I mean, I think it sounds great, and from a population point of view, it sounds good. How do provisions touch the hard to reach population, those with limited language, transport or mobility problems? I know that there is quite a long waiting time for routine. It's different for emergencies, and that patients may have to travel quite a long way across the patch to get to the dental surgery that they've been allocated to. And I don't know whether that's going to be looked at when some data comes in. My other question was, is there provision for education or awareness raising in schools, other places where young people can take their own decisions about their dental care?
Okay, so I mean, in terms of the hard to reach, there are some alternatives around that as well. So there is going to be the ability to sort of speak to the to the health board and to be registered, so we can guide people through the process. I think that the point is that you make about socialising this probably hasn't been done to the extent that it needs to be. And therefore, from a Welsh Government perspective, there's some information that's come out now around the charges, but there's wider documentation that's coming out for patients. In the education perspective, GPs, when I spoke to the LMC recently, weren't really aware of this. So there's more work that we need to do with our own independent contractors, but obviously secondary care consultants and teams. And it's probably in schools, education establishments as well. So everybody is aware of this. But so I suppose there's some local work that we do, but there's some national work that's needed as well to raise awareness about this is now how you access dentistry.
Okay. I think I would echo Ugo's comments. I really welcome the focus on prevention. I think part of the challenge is, as you've just had to rehearse in that conversation, is around how you work with preventing to reach out to those seldom heard voices. I think for me, there is a couple of assurance questions. One is around whether we do have the management capacity to deliver the new contract, the shift in approach across the practices, but also in the health board itself. That's one of the questions. I think from an audit perspective, it would be helpful to understand whether there are any risks in relation to accounting estimates because of the change in model, shifting from activity to outcomes, which I think is going to be a challenge, and how we look at that. And then is there a financial risk to the health board if we're obliged to pay more for outcomes and prevention that the Welsh Government covers with its allocation? So I think there's another question there for me.
Yeah, so some good questions, really good questions. So there have been some initial issues with the dental software that dentists use to actually record work. So that's currently being worked through. We would normally do a 6-month review of the activity that's been delivered. It is still activity, even though there's a prevention element. If you look at those segments, we will monitor the activity in those segments. There's going to need to be a closer look, particularly over the first year. There's also been some latitude around meeting the various elements of this segmentation, because really it's new territory for all of us, for the dental practitioners, for the health boards. In terms of our capacity, you're absolutely right. We've never had it before, actually had to appoint all of these, basically arrange for appointments for these patients. And in April, I think it was 8,000 patients actually that we allocated. Another interest point is patients, even though we offer them, are not necessarily then taking up the appointments. And also dentists seeing that once we've allocated them, they're not turning up either. So there's some issues there from a financial perspective. We've been very careful in terms of the financial risk at the moment, because even though we've had a number of contracts handed back, we haven't yet made a decision on recommissioning that activity. We had a large practice handed back last year of a value of around £1 million. That's working its way through at the moment. So we'll have to look at the demand and where we need to put access if we need to in hard to reach places. So at the moment we're being cautious around the money, particularly in this first year, and given the situation that we're in as a health board financially as well.
PSC to keep an eye on our financial implications of it as it moves forward. So we've got Rena, then Steve, then we're going to break for.
Yes, thanks, Craig. And whilst I'm supportive of the prevention side of it, I mean, very much so, I'm concerned, and I've had this is the biggest issue that's been raised with me locally, because there's a practice in my area that has been handed back. And the fact that people usually are signed up to a dentist, which is near where they live, is really key. So I think it might result in more health inequalities or lack of access because of the fact they can't go to their local dentist anymore because it's no longer there as an NHS practice. And what they've been asked to do, and I did see a letter that somebody received from the practice that frankly didn't really explain that NHS services would be available still to them and they could access it. They weren't making that available. The fact was they were asking people to sign up to a paid arrangement per month. And if people haven't got the money, do you see what I mean? It's going to broaden the gap. So I just feel it's not been done in a very equitable way. And I'm quite concerned how it's going to come out in the long run. And it's not actually going to achieve what we want in terms of prevention.
So I think that's why we need to get that message out there more widely about what is available. You're absolutely right, and I've seen some of that communication. We've actually had to take action against some of the practices in terms of the communication that they've actually put out to their patients, encouraging them on going on to private dental plans rather than giving that information. So I think I say it's getting that information out there about how you now register for NHS dentistry.
So Steve, perhaps we can ask population health, and then we want to come in. But what we don't want here is to widen inequity of access to dental services, which could well happen. So I know you want to come in there. Will you pick that up?
Yeah. Okay. Craig, we talk about this issue quite often, but just to do it sort of in the open. And you said, although Rena's absolutely right, there is an inequity in the sense that if your practice that you've been going to and it's next door to you disappears, then you get less good access. But I think I'm right in saying this, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm a Swansea Bay resident, and I don't have a dentist, or I just arrive in Swansea Bay and I'm looking for a dentist, quite soon, by going onto the dental access portal, I will get the dentist. And if in the meantime, I have a toothache or I walk into a wall, or not impossible, and I have a dental emergency, we will be able to provide that urgent dental treatment if I don't have a dentist of my own. Yeah. And sometimes on the same day.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's urgent access, and that's built into the contract. And this to say, it's not the system for dentists is not the same as a GP. You don't register with a dentist, and you're kept to because of the geography you live in. You can choose to have a dentist wherever. What we are trying to do in terms of when we're allocating patients as far as possible, and there, I'm pretty sure there's a question on there about how far people are willing to travel, is that we will actually locate them as near as possible with a local dentist rather than them having to travel great distances. So we do proactively look at that as well.
So I'm going to close it down now. So Craig, an awful lot of interest and issues arising. So we have considered the changes as you've asked. We're taking assurance from the point of view that this has been implemented and we are actively processing it. There are a number of issues associated with that implementation, including the resourcing of it, access for people through it, whether we're widening inequalities. So we're going to refer to PSD, this whole financial modelling around it, and to population health, this whole issue of equity of access. Is this making it worse? And I do think this will be reviewed, this contract. Yeah.
I mean, I might, as much as anyone has read what's publicly available about Plaid Cymru's government's areas of interest, I think, Craig, I'm right in saying this is one of the things that's on their list of areas to look at and review.
Okay, so we'll doubtless be coming back to that. Okay, we'll have a 10-minute coffee break, please, then we'll resume with part 5 and people.
Thank you.